Hello, hello. It's us again, Ryan,
And Katie.
and you're listening to the list where we're continuing our top 100 films of all time to let you know whether they are on the bucket list or the chuck it list.
I was wondering if you were going to say it.
It's been a while since we said it, so I
The
figured it might
listeners
as well.
deserve it.
It's for them.
We
And
do this
today
for you
we are
guys.
going over the film Pulp Fiction, the cult classic by Quentin Tarantino.
Oh, Quentin.
And this is a first for you. Have you seen any Tarantino films before?
I've seen at least the opening scene to Kill Bill
Kill Bill.
because of the feet thing.
Oh yeah, wiggle your
Because everybody's
toe.
like, Quentin Tarantino's really into feet. I read that once.
Did
And
you?
now, yeah,
Where did you read that?
I don't know, the internet of
Mm.
novel. I've read a lot of novels about Quentin Tarantino.
Mm. That's weird.
But for real, they were talking about, and then this whole movie, people were like, there was an emphasis on feet, a lot about feet.
In Kill Bill, but not in
And
Pulp
this one
Fiction.
too, there were bare feet and
I
Uma
guess there were some bare
Thurman.
feet
Yeah.
on the dance floor.
Hmm.
I, were there more than that? Just two?
I feel like there's at least one more, but it was, you know, that's all the feet I can remember. So
No
if there were,
spoilers,
they were
please.
not.
No spoilers, please.
If
It's
they
not
were, they
that portion
weren't
of the show.
feet that made an impression.
Oh.
So
Well, this is a difficult film to kind of do a synopsis on. However, I'll try my best. It's about several different characters. There are two mob hitmen. There's a boxer. There is a gangster and his wife, and there's also a pair of diner bandits. And really, it's separate stories for each one of these groups of people, but they kind of intertwine. And it's a film of violence,
yeah.
and I guess in some cases redemption to a certain degree.
Hmm. I will just say I can't watch violence and gore. It really bothers me, but this movie didn't bother me. Um,
It's pretty
I don't know if it's the
outrageous,
way he does
the
it. Yeah,
gore,
maybe it's
yeah.
just that it's so outrageous that it didn't affect me. But literally, even there's one part where there were brain chunks. That was a little icky to me, but I can't watch gore, and I made it through this movie just fine. I never had to turn away or like close my eyes or anything.
Yeah,
Maybe that's
it
it.
wasn't realistic. It was like kind of overboard, and
Yeah, comic booky.
yeah, a lot of dark humor in this film.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know what else to say about it. It's a Quentin Tarantino film.
Yeah,
They are unique.
they're
All of
very
them.
unique.
All of them are. And this one is unique in a lot of different ways. This is a trippy film. There's drugs, there's violence, there's a lot of weird, funny monologue. Especially Samuel L. Jackson has a lot of them. I think some
Yeah,
pretty classic um, lines that you've probably heard from all sorts of clips all over the internet.
yeah. The dialogue really carries this movie.
I think it does.
Like, it's great dialogue. And also, you're right. You remember a few years back, I finally watched all the Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Here's $10. Go see a Star Wars. I finally watched all the Star Wars, and I like all of a sudden my mind was like opened. I was like enlightened to all these years of like
Pop
pop
culture
culture
references
that
that you
I
never got
didn't
before.
get. There's a lot of pop culture references in this that I finally understand now, but also it's Samuel L. Jackson from this movie is all over TikTok, and I'm just realizing that's where he's from.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't like there's a scene, the scene where he's drinking coffee in the character Quentin Tarantino plays, Jim,
Hmm.
whatever his name is. He's drinking coffee in his house and he's like, "This is an incredible blend" or whatever, and it's this anyway, that's all over TikTok right now, so thought that was funny. But yeah, it's definitely, you can tell when a movie is has affected a generation because all of a sudden, it's everywhere. It's ingrained in everybody. They quote it at each other all the time. It's like The Office. Everybody, our generation quotes The Office all the time. When's the last time you heard somebody say something about an inside joke and I didn't say, I love inside jokes. I always wanted to be a part of one.
Hmm.
Or
It's it's
Yepers.
almost like Monty Python.
Yeah,
It's one
you're
of those
right.
movies
Yeah.
everybody quotes, but it's
Mm-hmm.
at the same time it's not that great of a movie.
Yeah, I was just
But
going
it's
to
fun
say,
to
is it
quote.
really that
And
great of a movie? Or did
well,
you just enjoy watching it? But then again,
I think
what
there's
makes
some
a great
elements in this
movie?
movie that are actually really good,
Yeah.
and then there's some stuff that's just kind of weird, artsy,
Yeah.
on the edge stuff
Gratuitous.
that is neat, but I don't know if it gels cohesively with everything else.
I think this is one of those movies that you have to do the same thing that you did with some of the past movies where you said you had to think about when it came out. I think you have to think about when this movie came out too, because it was in the 90s, and the
Hmm.
90s was very much like feel good, cliche, um, like redemption. It was just the era of those kind of movies. And then you throw Pulp Fiction out there, that's this very much not a feel good movie and very edgy and very dark humor with crazy over the top language and dialogue and violence. So I think a lot of it is when it came out, it kind of turned everything on its head. I guess maybe what I don't know is if it holds up so much, or how much of it is when it came out and the doors that it opened for other um, movies that wanted to do similar things. And
I think you're right. I think it's a trendsetter for
like how
future
it
movies to come.
disrupted. I think it
It
probably
did.
disrupted things, which is interesting.
To me, this is not my favorite Quentin Tarantino.
What's your favorite?
I really like the Kill Bills. I even like Hateful Eight.
Oh,
I like the Django as
he
well. I
did
like
Hateful Eight,
yeah, I
the
like
one with
all those
Channing
better.
Tatum.
I can't remember if Channing Tatum's in it or
Do you
not, but
remember that? Speaking of me not being able to handle gore, do you remember you tried to watch Hateful Eight and I left the room crying? I had to
hmm
leave.
yeah, I do. I remember that.
It like
Uh,
hurt my heart. I had to leave. I couldn't
yeah,
handle
I
it.
like all those. I like all those ones better than this, but I think there's some really fun elements. One of my favorite
It was a
scenes.
fun movie.
There's a lot of really fun parts. My
Yeah.
favorite part is with John Travolta and um, oh my goodness, I'm blanking. Uma Thurman,
Uh huh.
and they're in the '50s diner.
Yeah.
And I think just that whole scene, just with all the color, the whole setup with all the little '50s characters, and
Hmm.
then they get on stage and they're just kind of dancing. And like to me, I'm like, who does this? Only
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino does a
Yeah.
freaking really cool, fun scene like this, and
Barefoot.
and it just looks cool and it feels like a cool scene. Did it feel that way to you, or did it
I
feel dorky?
loved it.
Oh,
No, I
okay.
loved it.
Because I was
Do you
like,
know? Because
this
it
is
could
just
have been
like this is
dorky.
cool. This
Do
is
you know?
why they
Because
want to work with this guy.
it really could have been dorky, right? Like it
It
could
could
have
have been.
fallen so flat. And that's the job of the director, I think, is to be able to sit back and watch it and say, we're towing the line of really just cheesy and weird here. And the way he did it with the lighting and with the setup and with just the cool aura he had already set up through the whole movie made it not cheesy at all, but
Yeah,
almost like I don't know what to say. You kind of just vibe while you watch it. It was nice. I liked it.
yeah. That's one of my favorite scenes from that
Yeah,
movie for sure. What? This is gonna be really hard to rate.
it
What did you
is.
think about the plot then?
This movie,
Because it's really multiple plots
Yeah. Well, I want to
that's kind of the
say
same plot at the same time.
it's a movie that starts off. There was the movie through the entire thing from the moment the movie started to the moment the movie ended. I was very engaged and very entertained. And just to start with the beginning, you kind of zero in on the scene between two people in a diner. And even though nothing is quite happening yet, you're still very interested in their dialogue. And then 2 minutes in, he um, packs a punch with what happens. There turns out they're robbers and they're going to rob the diner right now. And this girl who had been really honey bunny and sweet up until then is like, I'm going to kill any of
Freeze! I'm
you.
gonna
Yeah.
execute all of you.
And then he sets up this movie that you think you're watching about two people who are robbers, like a Bonnie and Clyde type thing, and he subverts what you're expecting and throws you into a completely different what you believe to be unconnected story. So I found it very fun to watch because you never knew what was happening next, and not in the way where you were lost, but where he gave you very expertly threads of things to hold on to. Here, hold this. So we're going to watch this and we're going to look at this and I want you to enjoy this. Now hand that back to me and here's this. This is also very interesting and very fun. And now I'm going to hold that for another minute and we're going to go back to this one. And it was always done with perfect timing and with finesse, very enjoyable to hop from story to story, not confusing. And then in the end, of course, he weaves it all together very well.
And I think that's part of the plot because it's not a linear plot line.
No.
The plot line shifts time, and you don't really know until you get to the end whether you're watching the end or the beginning
Yeah.
or in the middle. But then you find it out though.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the cinematography part as well. But they give you little threads and then you start connecting the dots, and that's kind of a cool little
Yeah.
element that goes, "Oh, that's why this happened."
Mm-hmm.
Now I fully or more fully understand all of this that happened in between what we saw from previous parts.
Yeah. So I guess I would give the story a 9, actually. I'm kind of surprised by that. I'm kind of surprised that I feel that way, but I think I'd give the story a 9. Entertainment value versus genius versus um, plot. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it's still difficult because each character plot is almost like its own plot, and they're kind of separate stories. I think my least favorite one, well, I don't know if it's my least favorite one, but I think the one that felt the most disjointed from the rest of the film was the story about the boxer.
I knew you were going to say that.
I just felt like it was almost like it could have been its own completely separate movie almost
Yeah.
from the other portions of the film. Does
But
that
with
make
that
sense?
said, I enjoyed it immensely. I
Oh,
thought it
I did
added.
too. It just had a different vibe from the rest of it compared to
It's
all the
almost
other
like
plots to
it's
me.
almost like the rest of the plots were a cake and the boxer was the icing. Like obviously they're two separate things, but you put them together and they're still good. I don't know. I liked it.
It's still
I
good.
liked that they added it in.
I think if I had to put them all together, I would probably say I'm thinking about an eight.
Hmm.
About an eight. So not quite as high as you, but there's still lots of elements I really enjoyed.
Weird story.
It's very weird. It's very weird. I think you're right though. The dialogue is
Good
what
grief.
carries this movie
Yeah.
a lot because even just the dumb stuff
Yeah.
that Vincent and Samuel L. Jackson's character talk about. Those are the two gangsters. It's the dumbest stuff, but
Yeah.
you're kind of interested in what they're saying at the same time.
What's he saying in the beginning? And he's like, if you don't shut up, I'm going to shoot you. What's he talking about? John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson get into this argument in the beginning. And he's asking him about something. What's he asking him
A
about?
foot massage. They're
A
asking
foot
about a
massage.
foot massage.
Is a foot massage inappropriate or not? And Samuel L. Jackson's like, yeah, or no, it's not inappropriate. There's nothing weird about a foot massage. And so he goes, okay, so you're going to give a man a foot massage?
Yeah, and he's
And he
like,
goes dead silent. And then John
he's like, I'm
Travolta
about to
won't let
shoot
it
you.
go. And yeah, anyway, right, exactly. They're talking about a foot massage, but it's the way they talk about it, the way their dialogue is written, and the way they deliver it that makes it magical. You're listening to these people talk about foot massages and you're enraptured, like you can't stop listening.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too because there are these two hitmen
Yeah.
that are like intellectualizing every little
Yeah.
ridiculous conversation that they can get into, and it's
I think
it's
a lot of
it's it's hilarious in
I
a
think a
lot of
lot of what
ways.
this movie does is subvert what you expect from the characters that they're playing. Um, that they're hitmen, but they're intellectual. Um, that the boxer is so emotional and flowery. That the I don't know. I just feel like a lot of this movie was turning things on its head and taking what you would expect and not letting that happen, or letting it happen in a way that you didn't predict. So I just thought it was clever. It was a clever movie. I think I'd give the acting a 9. All of the actors were fantastic. The weak link was Quentin Tarantino.
I don't know. I still liked him though.
It
I
was
still liked
fine.
him.
I don't know. I'd give the acting a 9. It was good. I can't pinpoint anything that had me like full of emotion, but it wasn't that kind of movie. It was supposed to be
It was
darkly
comedy.
funny,
It's
and
a
it
it's a dark
was. It was
comedy.
funny. Yeah, it was funny and fun to watch in a really weird way. So I don't know. I think I'd give the acting an 8.5. Actually, I'm going to go down to an 8.5.
I think that's
Cons-
fair. I
yeah,
think 8.7.
yeah.
What did you think of Christopher Walken's character?
Who's like,
That's
he delivered that whole monologue where I was actually really touched. He was like, "This watch was your great." I can't do his accent. Your great grandfather's, and he had it in the war, and you go through this whole thing, and then he's like, and
when he's
then your
like, and he
father
was
took this watch and shoved it up his butt. And kept it up his butt for 3 years, and then I put it up my butt for 10 years, and I'm like, what is this turned into? Yet I'm still interested. I still can't turn away from the TV. I'm still enjoying it. It was great. He did a really good job of towing the line of just extraordinarily outrageous, but in a way that you still feel like it's reality. I don't know what to say. Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't guess,
I
but
know exactly what you mean. Like when you say that, like the absurdity of some of the stuff that happens in there, but at the same time, you're like, yeah,
yeah.
I kind of know some people like this almost, you know? Uh, so,
uh,
yeah, I totally understand exactly what you're trying to say. And if anybody else has seen the film, I think they'll know too.
what did you think about the acting?
I think, yeah, 8.7.
Yeah.
It's way up there for me. There's a lot of really famous
It's a
people in this movie.
star-studded
E-
cast, right?
Yeah, acting was way up there for me. 8.7. I thought everybody did really good. My least favorite character was the boxer's wife, just because
But what if
her character was weird to me. I
it
don't
was
know,
weird, but I really like how
but it
he
was a
tells,
quirky character though.
yeah. And I like how he tells you that, not by having her act quirky or someone tell you she's quirky, but instead it has you see him get into bed with her and her start talking about what if she had a pot belly and how she wishes she had one, and if she did, what she would wear. And I just think that's so clever to use dialogue as a way to explain something about someone. It's, I just thought it was clever. He's clever. I'm going to say clever one more time. Clever.
He is for sure. Cinematography
So interesting to
for me,
watch.
Yeah, I think this cinematography is way up there. This is an artsy movie. His use of color, the use of nonlinear plot lines, the use of some camera effects like with the drug scenes and weird angles sometimes. It's very unique from
It
any
is
other
unique,
film
isn't it? That's
that we've
true.
seen. I
Well,
mean,
just in
only
general,
only
can
one you can really compare them to that we've seen so far would be like an Alfred Hitchcock type thing.
well, like right now, just sitting here right now and not limiting it to that, is there any movie you would say is like Pulp Fiction?
I don't think so. Not that I can think of off the top of my head right now.
Yeah,
Not really.
that's interesting.
And I'm probably going to give it a 10.
I think I'd give it at least a nine. I'm gonna probably say a nine and a half. I think it was very, yeah, it was interesting to watch. The camera angles were great. The use of color, you're right. It had a sense of, even just the colors he used gave it a sense of coolness. Going back to the scene of them
In the
dancing, the way
diner,
the lights dimmed, the way he zooms in. I don't know. His shots are amazing.
in the
He's got a
diner, and
wonderful
then you have
eye.
the flashbacks with the kid and the soldier coming to see him.
Yeah.
The like the dark colors that you get when they're like in the basement of the pawn
Mm-hmm.
shop, and there's some cool elements in the cinematography, and
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen anything like it since Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't say they're similar, but I would say they're similar.
I would say they're cutting edge.
Yeah, they
They're
both,
cutting
there's something
edge
about both of them.
and almost experimental in a good way,
Yeah.
because I don't feel like it distracted from the movie. I think it just
No.
added
Mhm.
to the ambience
Agreed.
of the film in
Yeah.
general, and made it this, yeah, almost comic book like
Comic book come to life.
feel, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really liked it. And the wow factor. What was the wow factor for you?
Can I say the vibe? Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
I'd say the vibe gives me a wow factor in this movie. Just the feel of watching it, the feeling you get watching it is a wow factor to me.
Yeah, there's a definitely cool vibe. I think that's part of the wow factor. I think the cinematography is really part of the wow factor. I think the like we already said, some of the dialogue is a wow factor. The amount of profanity in this movie
Cool.
is a
But
wow factor. Not a good wow factor for me.
it did make you go,
It's not a film
wow.
for your children, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So
Don't
beware.
watch this one on family night.
Definitely not. Um, so wow factor is going to be like maybe like an 8.5 for me.
Valid.
It's unique. It's a unique film.
It is a very unique movie, and I'm actually surprised by the scores I gave it. It wasn't until we started talking about it that I realized how much I actually enjoyed it.
Is this a top 100 film of all time?
Yeah, I think for when it was released, and just thinking back to the kind of movies that were coming out back then, I would say for the way it splashed in and turned things on its head, yeah, I'd say it's a top 100 movie, and I do think it holds up. If it came out now, I don't think it would be as big of a deal. There's been other movies. Obviously, we just said there's been no movie that makes us think, oh, this is like Pulp Fiction, but there have been other movies that have done some of the things this movie does. But I do still think it has its own legs to stand on, and I do still think It was a very interesting movie to watch, enjoyable, clever, creative. I would say it's a top 100 movie.
What do you mean when you say there's other movies that does what this film does? I'm not sure
Do you
what you're.
think in the 90s, was I just too young to see things like this? Or do you think in the 90s that movies like this were coming out?
I don't think there's movies like this coming out at all.
I think maybe what I mean is there's less of a stigma around just excessive use of profanity and excessive use of gore. Uh, I think maybe is what I mean by that.
Hmm.
That it's less taboo to do the things that he did, and that it was much more taboo at the time the movie came out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, he's probably pushing a border as far as
Yeah.
that goes. Yeah.
But I guess what I'm saying is, even despite that, I feel like it still holds up as a good movie, and I do think it's a top 100 movie. I don't think it's a bucket list movie.
Yeah, I agree with you on both of those. I think it's top 100. I don't think it's a bucket list. It and the reason I say it's not a bucket list is it's just a
Movie, a great
fun
movie.
fun. I use that
It
kind of a
was
little
fun. It
loosely.
was fun. It's weird to call a gory movie that has some of the subject matter that this movie has fun. It is weird to say that, but it is,
Yeah, there's
the
probably a
vibe
better
is
word,
fun, enjoyable,
but not a bucket list. It's not drop
entertaining.
everything, go see it, must see before you
Mm-mm,
die type of movie.
mm-mm,
We've seen some of those, and we have some of those on our list, and this is not there for me. But
mm-mm.
cool, fun movie.
I still would say watch it, but just go in with the knowledge that if you're a Hallmark movie kind of person, you're not going to like this. It's
If you're easily offended by lots of things, this is not going to be a
lots.
movie for
Like,
you.
you should just
Like
probably look up
everything,
a list of things before you watch
it's a
it.
rough movie.
Yeah.
Well, let's see where we rank it on our tier list. You want to
Let's
go
go.
first?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know right now. I'm pulling it up just to find out myself. I don't know either. Okay. So I still have Goodwill Hunting as number one and The Great Dictator as 10. It's going to end up somewhere near Terms of Endearment, I feel like. Um, so I'm going to take off The Great Dictator, which was a fine movie. Moving down African Queen Stagecoach and Terms of Endearment. This is where I always struggle, is with these six.
Because those are really great movies.
Once I get to Rear Window, I really have to start thinking.
Yeah. It's hard for me to move Rear Window just because
Yeah,
it's such a good movie.
it's a great movie. So for me, I know it's not better than Rebel Without a Cause. I know it's going to be lower than that, but I'm trying to think. I would say they're so great. They're both so great cinematography wise. These both of these movies have great cinematography, an interesting storyline, but I feel like just the vibe of the movie makes Pulp Fiction higher than Rear Window to me. So
Well,
I actually think it's
if
going
you
to be number
enjoyed it more,
six for me.
then yeah, go for it.
I do. I do think I enjoyed it more. So I'm going to put Pulp Fiction at number six.
I think I am. I think I enjoyed it more than African Queen. Hey, I said it. Um, More than North by Northwest. More than Yankee Doodle Dandy. Whew, this is tough. Great Dictator. Such a great, funny movie in a different way. I think I'm gonna leave 8 here. I think I'm gonna move it to spot 8. I think The Great Dictator is gonna stay above it just barely, and I think the only reason is because it's a much older film and the stuff that it did. was newer
Hmm.
because film was so new. Speaking
Gotcha.
film, and Charlie Chaplin, amazing. Um, that's all. It's a tough one there. I
Yeah,
think it could really flip flop either way, depending on what part of it you're looking at.
for sure.
So, all right, well, cool. Let us know what you think about Pulp Fiction. Is it this cult classic like it's become?
Or is
What's
it the
your
Monty
favorite
Python
scene?
effect?
I think it's definitely better than Monty Python, but Monty Python has some funny lines. Let us know what you think.
Leave
You
us
can
voicemail.
leave us a voicemail or go to our YouTube channel and leave us some comments there, or go to our Instagram. Ryan and Kat's list. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought about the film. Is there a better Quentin Tarantino film that you like?
Does Quentin
I love
Tarantino have a weird obsession with feet?
all these questions and more we can discuss in further detail. Let us know. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Ryan,
I'm Katie.
and this is the list.